Alrighty, folks. Well, here we are, and it is time to recap the 5 most important moments of that final presidential debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So, the debate was really about whether Donald Trump could somehow recast this race. Obviously, everybody has their thoughts about Donald Trump, whether they like him or whether they hate him. This really was about whether Donald Trump could, number one, show that he was not going to be the guy who just ran roughshod over Joe Biden that he was at the first debate. And 2, it was designed to cast Joe Biden in a different light and raise serious questions about Joe Biden in terms of his ability to lead the nation, in terms of his character, and in terms of his agenda for the country. And there were 5 big moments for President Trump along these lines. So the first topic that was brought up by the moderator, Kristen Welker, was, of course, COVID. And this is always a loser for Trump, because when you're the president of the United States and 200,000 people die, it does not matter why it happened. It does not matter whether your actions were actually not bad. You're going to get blamed. And that is the way that Joe Biden approached this. Joe Biden approached this by essentially suggesting that Trump was responsible single-handedly for 220,000 deaths. He suggested that if there was an empty chair at your dinner table, it was because of this guy, Donald Trump. And all of that happens to be extremely false, and not just extremely false, deeply immoral, when there's a pandemic that hits everybody on the globe and wipes out hundreds of thousands of people across Europe, across Asia, across the United States, across Canada. It turns out that that is not due to Donald Trump. Okay, but still, that is the prevailing narrative. Well, Trump had to draw a different narrative, and that is, as we move forward in this pandemic, are we all going to cower in our basements, or are we actually going to get out of our basements on occasion and, start to live our lives? And this was the vision that Trump provided. I thought it was actually a good moment for Trump. So the most important moment of the debate for Trump, number one, was when President Trump suggested that Joe Biden is basically lockdown Joe, that what he would like to do is lock us all down indefinitely in preparation for some horrendous doom, that we cannot go out and live our lives. Here is Trump drawing the contrast.
All he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. Democrats all, they're shut down so tight and they're dying. We're not going to shut down, and we have to open our schools. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. I've said it often, the cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. And that's what's happening. And he wants to he'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Okay, and Joe Biden has, in fact, said that he would consider new lockdowns, even though all of Europe at this point is saying, yes, we have a second wave, but we're not locking down any further. So that contrast, I think, is going to benefit Trump, because I think there are a lot of people in the country who are rightly cautious with regard to COVID, but who are not willing to go into full-scale lockdown again, especially given the fact that all lockdown does is delay the spread, because once you end the lockdown, it turns out there's not really a great way to delay the spread much further. You're seeing this in Italy right now. Okay, so moment of the debate number 2 that was very important for President Trump. This was Trump attempting to draw a different narrative about Biden with regard to his actual image. For some odd reason, Americans tend to believe that Joe Biden is honest. I do not know why this is. Joe Biden has been in Washington, D.C. his entire life. He was elected to Senate before he was legally able to serve in the Senate. He's been a swamp creature forever. In 2008, the New York Times was reporting about his odd relationships with people who were lobbyists on behalf of the credit card industry, how his son Hunter was picking up checks from companies associated with some of those lobbyists. Joe Biden has for a very long time been a Washington, D.C. insider. He's been the consummate D.C. politician for a very long time. Trump pointed this out. And this is important because, again, the entire media infrastructure has decided that Trump is deeply corrupt. Here was Trump pointing out, well, Joe, you got some corruption issues of your own.
I was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years. It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign. No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller and 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place spent $48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. $48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent $1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong. Because the kind of things that you've done and the kind of monies that your family has taken, your brother made money in Iraq, millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place.
Is there any proof that Joe Biden got money from any of the members of his family? No. Is it true that his family members have been making bank off of Joe Biden's name for a long time? Absolutely. That part is absolutely true. It is also true that Joe Biden's net worth, according to Forbes, is now $9 million. Now remember, he's middle-class Scranton guy, right? He's the guy who's just there, public servant, no problem. He's worth $9 million. That's a lot of money. So trying to draw that contrast, trying to point out that Joe Biden has been a swamp creature for a long time, I thought that was a successful move. Biden tried to redirect away from it, and Trump slapped him back into line. This was probably the best single tactical move that Trump made during the debate. There was one point at which Joe Biden, tired of talking about his family, tried to redirect the conversation by directly addressing camera and saying, listen, you don't want to hear about my family. You don't want to hear about his family. You want to hear about your family. And Trump was like, what is this political crap that you're spilling right now? It's pretty great.
He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now.
That's a typical political statement. Let's get off this China thing. And then he looks, the family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk about North Korea.
I'm not a typical politician.
Okay,
that's why I got elected.
Correct. That is true. And also, that's very funny because it is true. There's nothing more irritating to me in politics than when politicians do this phony routine. It's like, I know you don't want to hear about this issue we're talking about. You want to hear about you. I remember during the Democratic debates when I believe it was Kamala Harris did this. Why are we all debating each other? Why are we talking like this? It's so terrible. We shouldn't be. And Julian Castro said, because it's a debate. Whenever a politician cuts through the crap like that, it is a very good move. Okay, so we have two narratives that Trump has now promoted that we've gone through. One is that Joe Biden is lockdown Joe. The other is that Joe Biden has some corruption issues. Then Trump got to his third point. And his third point is that Joe Biden happens to be a guy who's been in Washington literally forever, and he's accomplished nothing except for stuff he is now running away from. His signature legislative proposal was the 1994 crime bill. Joe Biden is now running directly headlong away from it. He talks about what he's going to do with regard to healthcare and public options. And Trump was like, well, you were vice president, so how about that? What happened? This is a good point for Trump. Right? Trump says, I'm an outsider. I'm getting a lot of stuff done. I've been here for 3.5 years. I'm getting stuff done. You were the vice president for 8, and you were senator for 1,292 years before that, and you got nothing done except for stuff that you want to now run away from. Here was Joe Biden trying to run away from his own record, and Trump saying, okay, so then what have you done for your entire life?
In the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change the sense, and particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment.
Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. You put tens of thousands of mostly black young men in prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know why, Joe? Because you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President Biden, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress.
Joe Biden did not have a Republican Congress. He had a Democratic Congress for the first 2 years of the Obama administration. The Republicans didn't flip the Senate until 2014. Okay, the final important moment of the debate, the fifth important moment of the debate, came when President Trump decided to go after Joe Biden's radicalism. So Biden said a bunch of radical stuff during this debate. He suggested at one point climate change was going to kill us all. He also lied about Obamacare. He said nobody lost their private health insurance due to Obamacare. That's a lie. Millions of people did. But perhaps the most obvious point of radicalism is when Trump got Biden to admit on stage that he wants to destroy the American oil industry. This is a pretty amazing line.
Would you close down the oil industry?
By the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I would
that's
transition.
A big statement.
It is a big statement. Because I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
And here's the deal. But
that's
you
a
can't
big
do
statement.
That. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. Over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do give it to solar and wind.
We
and
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
We have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Okay. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond,
Ohio.
and then I have to get to the final question. Vice President Biden.
He takes everything out of context.
No, he did not. Okay, and that if that debate means anything, it's going to tell in Pennsylvania where Biden's decision to go directly after the oil industry, I mean, he was walking it back within hours after the debate saying, oh, no, we're just going to transition. I don't mean we're going to get rid of the oil industry. So was it a successful debate for Trump? We'll find out when it comes time for the polls. But on the merits, Trump did a better job in this debate than Joe Biden, and those were the 5 biggest moments. If you enjoyed this debate recap and you want to see more, let us know down in the comments. We appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe.